practices that we have pulled into our own practices. So it was something we wanted everybody to be able to explore with us. The first place we're going, so when we fly out, we're going to fly overnight, and if you're coming from the States, if you're not coming from the States, you can travel in differently. But we're going to be flying overnight. The goal is to be in Heathrow at 9 a.m. for the bus on July 31st. And at 9 a.m. we take the bus down to Avebury. And this is only about an hour ride from Heathrow Airport. And when we get to Avebury, we're going to connect with Ancient Stones, and we are going to have a circle, and it's our opening circle to sort of, thank the land for welcoming us, and just be present with each other. And it's really just a space to embrace the ritual and embrace the journey we're about to go on together. So it's pretty light, and we're going to have breakfast there, and then we're going to get back on the bus, and we're going to travel about another 3 hours, which is nice because it's an overnight flight, so you'll probably want to sleep. So we'll travel down to Boscastle, and in Boscastle is the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. And the reason we love the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic is obviously, this is the Witch and the Priestess, and we practice witchcraft. So a big part of why we go, why we loved this museum, there's a million different reasons to go see this museum. For me, what really spoke to me was, seeing these people, these enlightenment ideals coming through, seeing all the different magic that these people, that practitioners created in the mundane, ways that they sort of embodied and embraced the things that were sacred to them and created something magical from it, created a life that was magical from it, created a practice that was magical from it. And, whether one decides to, however anybody wants to step into their magical practice, and it doesn't have to be called a magical practice, however anybody wants to step into their divinity fully, this is an opportunity to really walk through one leg of that journey and see how people sat with themselves and chose to take a different path, chose to find the divine in a different way, chose to find themselves in a different way. And I found it to be very inspirational. I found it to be incredibly informational, educational, and the people there were incredible. They were so kind, and they had so many answers for everything. So that's the first part of the second day, actually. So once we get down to Cornwall, we're not doing anything the first day. We're going to just hang out. We're going to have a welcome dinner. We're going to check into the hotel. And I'm sorry, so this is what's happening the first day after we check into the hotel, so after we sleep and relax. So we're going to do that Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, and then afterwards we are going to take a bus down to Tintagel Castle and Merlin's Cave. So this is really something I just feel like in this area you can't miss. So once we're down in Cornwall, Cornwall is this gorgeous area. It is like black slate stone everywhere, and there's caves and jetties and just beautiful things that you can go see. And this is where supposedly King Arthur's castle was. And there's a sort of a stone trail, stair trail to get down to Merlin's Cave. So for me, that's the most magical part of this, is really stepping into this history and this lore and this folklore, which is a big part of Stephanie's practice and a big part of my practice in different ways, but really embracing the roots and the energy of the earth, that's circulating around this lore. So it's really a connection to lore. It's really a connection to the stories that have built us, and identifying if whether or not we resonate with those stories, identifying if those stories still serve us. How can we look at those stories through a different lens? So this whole day is a day of really exploring this area, being in community, connecting with each other, and really just seeing what's out there, seeing what folklore can show us, seeing what people can show us who step out of line, who follow their own heart space to becoming something more than they were expected to be, or more than they were told that they could be. So that is our first day in Cornwall. And then we sleep in Cornwall again, and we're sleeping at the Wellington Hotel, which is an incredible hotel. There's little shops for you to walk around and go see. The Wellington Hotel has this gorgeous restaurant that you can go in and eat. Like we have breakfast and lunch every single day. We have a welcome dinner and a farewell dinner. So this day dinner is on your own. They have Cornish pasties if you're into that kind of thing. They even have gluten-free Cornish pasties, so that's pretty amazing. So then we stay at the Wellington Hotel for our second night in the UK, and then we get on the bus early in the morning, and we are driving to Glastonbury. So we are going to take our next location is Glastonbury, where we're going to stay for another 2 nights. Haha, Stephanie just walked in. So we're going to be in Glastonbury for 2 nights. The first day when we get there, so we're leaving Cornwall a little bit early, and when we get to Glastonbury, we are going to drop off all of our bags, get settled, and then we're going to go over and see Glastonbury Tor. So Glastonbury Tor, for me, was an incredibly serene place. It was incredibly quiet, and it's the Tower of St. Michael, and there's so many different ways that, we're going to talk about what a Tor is, what's jutting out of the earth, but it's just this beautiful view of the UK, and the Tor is like above Avalon. It's above this apple orchard that is Avalon. So there's so much fairy lore there. There's so much Mary Magdalene lore there. There's Mother Mary lore there. There's just so many beautiful, Morgan Le Fay and the Morgan. There's so many different stories, folklore that we can lean into when we're here. But really this is about an experience. This is about feeling into the earth and feeling into, Glastonbury is the heart chakra of Mama Earth. And if you weren't aware of that, there are chakras. The earth has dragon ley lines, and where they cross is where we have different chakras. So this is the heart chakra of Mama Earth. So we're going to see the Tor. The next day we're going to stay in Glastonbury that night, and we have a lot of free time in Glastonbury because there's a lot of amazing things you can do. The 2 things that we're doing together as a group is the Tor, and then the next day we're doing the Chalice Well, which is just this beautiful, quiet, serene, sacred space with sacred waters and different places to have meditations and different places to gather together. What's funny is I keep saying serene because that's what we planned, and we were super careful about making sure that we were not there for the Goddess Conference, but we are there for the Goddess Conference. So if you know what that is, it's kind of like Woodstock for light workers, and it is going to be amazing and beautiful. We were apparently meant to be there. So really leaning into community in a big way when we go to Glastonbury. So we're just going to allow, divine guidance to take us through this. So Glastonbury is going to be amazing. And then we are going to make our way up to London. We only have 1 night in London, and London is a free day. We had some stuff on the schedule for London, but as it turns out, people want to just see the parts of London that they want to see. We only have 1 day in London, so this is really a day of just relaxing. This is a day of sort of allowing yourself to seek and wander. You can stay with the group. There's hop on, hop off buses. There's all different ways to spend the day in London. One of the ways that Stephanie and I said that we were going to go see the Atlantis Bookshop, and we were sort of going to stay in that eclectic area, that shopping area. The Atlantis Bookshop is one of the oldest occult bookstores, and it's just one of the places that we wanted to go back to when we went to the UK. The British Museum is an option. There's so many different ways you can spend the day in London. And then that night, you can come over. Do you want to come in here? Come in here with me. And then Stephanie's going to join us. Take that because they were all. So we're in this amazing office space. Come in here, look, just hogging the spotlight. So there's other people working downstairs, and I think they're drinking. So I had to put we had to put our it was a long day. I heard them all day. So, but London, the most important thing we're doing in London is going to the Jack the Ripper tour. The Jack the Ripper tour is really not about going to see Jack the Ripper. This is about experiencing the story of women from Victorian London, and really the story of the horrifically poor communities at any given time and really experiencing a story from that vantage and from that viewpoint. So again, just like the lens change that we were talking about at the Witchcraft Museum and at Tintagel Castle, this is an opportunity to shift our lens from feeling like it's cool and fun to talk about Jack the Ripper killing women because they were whores and nobody cares about whores. And it's shifting our lens, and that may sound strong, but this is something that lands very deeply with me. These are people who, were divorced. These are people who were not allowed to see their kids. They were people who were sleeping on the streets. And if women were not allowed to get jobs, there's very little that they can do to feed themselves and try to get back with their kids that they, from what my research, they had to pay child support for. But when we go to this tour, the reason we love this tour so much is because they are so incredibly conscious of that, and the whole tour is really based on how Whitechapel has salvaged this whole idea. So how they've sort of reclaimed the story and turned it into a story of, what these women went through, and that, how they died horrifically, and how that they're a symbol for all the women and all of the horrific poor working class that was, in that area at that time.
Makes me think of like how Salem does a beautiful reclamation. It's not like this, oh, it's kitschy and this is where the witch hunt happened, right?
Yeah.
Which, like, whatever, that's okay if that's how you felt and, like, that's why you went and visited Salem. But, like, when you get there and you do the tours and you meet with the locals and the historians, like, people that really invest, like, the time and energy into the research, and they're truly sharing these victim stories. They're giving them these victims who had their voice and their life robbed by this community because they were viewed as less than, because they were viewed as outcasts. And this tour, like Salem, does such a gorgeous job of giving back that voice to the disenfranchised.
Yep.
And that is something Beth and I love to celebrate.
We do love to celebrate that. And just so you know, there were no witches in Salem.
Yes, no.
But there are a lot of witches there now.
Yes, and that makes it a fun trip.
And going back to the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, they have a whole display for our Salem witches, and it touches my heart every time I see it. So, so that's London. And then we're sleeping in London for just one night in the most expensive city in the world. And then we are going to fly to Dublin in the morning. And when we fly to Dublin, we're not staying in Dublin, we're staying in Kildare. And the reason we chose to stay in Kildare is because a big part of my practice, I don't want to put it on you, but I think a big part of a lot of the people who are in our community, a big part of our practice is the goddess Bridget. So connecting to Saint Bridget or the goddess Bridget, whatever resonates with you. But Bridget's story is a story of empowering equality, empowering women, forging things. Saint Bridget was a story of two monasteries, one for men and one for women, that worked equally and together, that they reported, like they respected each other. And it was a safe haven for women who didn't want to just have babies. There was a 50% mortality rate for childbirth. And they wanted to learn, and they wanted to read, and they wanted to write, and they wanted to forge, and they wanted to do things. So the Saint Bridget really takes on a lot of what the gorgeous Celtic goddess Bridget left behind. So that's a really gorgeous story. We've talked to death.
Everybody loves Bridget. Yeah, we're just spinning out of Imbolc, but we are, we're staying in Kildare, but it's not all Bridget.
So we're staying there so we can really sleep in that land.
Yes.
Be held in that cradle of Mama Earth. And the next day we are going to the first full day that we're there. So we have the one day to sort of relax, connect with the land of Kildare, have lunch, get into our hotel, and then the first full day we're in Kildare. We are going to Owencat. How do we say it? The Gaelic hate us from New Jersey.
We don't pronounce English words like
we don't pronounce regular
American
English words,
right? Let alone Gaelic. But we're going to the Cave of Cats.
We're going to the Cave of Cats. I love that.
Yeah, the Cave of Cats is what it is known to the Gaelic challenge.
So this is a chance to move from the gorgeous, celebrated energy of Bridget into the energy of the Morrigan. And I'm going to let you talk about the original nightmare and how it's so important to celebrate all parts of you.
Yeah. So, the Cave of Cats, it is part of one of the burial mounds of the tombs of the kings of Ireland. Right? They have these mounds, and it's believed that these ancient kings, this is where they're buried. So the literally the underneath, like the womb of the earth, like where you come from and where you return to. So caves are very special. That's where you keep your riches. Riches are hidden in caves. People would store food in the caves, right? It kept it cool. All of your riches are in the earth. But this particular Cave of Cats is really associated with kind of the first Solomon rites, I guess you would say. And the idea was that these ancient ancestors would come out of the ground and be present, and they were walking. So this site created a lot of ancient rituals. So it's a very small opening in the ground. And it's associated with the Morrigan, because the Morrigan is a protector. She's associated with the Tuatha De Danann. And, you know, of course, the Morrigan is always associated with the darker side. You know, and we say the darker side, but she's the warrior. She's the protector. You know, some of her first images, she's a breastfeeding mother. You know what I mean?
She's like the milk of life.
Yes.
Right? There's this super old stone. I don't want to lie about how old it is, but I think it's like 10,000 years old.
Definitely, but yeah, before
and
the
her
images
breasts
we have her now.
are from here down to her waist, because that's who she was. She was
Yes.
the life-giving milk.
And you know, it was pretty common for tombs to have an image of a goddess with very endowed breasts at the entryway to caves, because this was kind of like an afterlife ritual. So the thought was that your mother welcomed you into the world, and your mother also welcomed you into the afterlife. I know, beautiful.
Morrigan.
And that is the Morrigan. You know, we say dark, but dark just means chaos. It means uncontrolled, and chaos has its place. You know, the world is chaos. Creation comes from it. Right, so the creation and the mother would be associated with chaos. But this cave in particular is associated with the Morrigan and Samhain, and that celebration of the dead returning with us from the cave. So it is a very small opening in the ground.
Yeah.
A little bit of a Winnie the Pooh moment.
My husband said absolutely not.
We crawl into this cave. We're going to do it because we are mighty.
Yes.
And
it's very big on the inside.
When you get
it's
inside,
bigger on the
it
inside.
opens up, and there is art on the walls. It is a beautiful place, and it is definitely a place where, whether or not, you know, you want to get historical, that the Morrigan stood here, her energy is there.
She's worshipped there.
And she is worshipped there, and she has been worshipped there for thousands of years. So she's there, right? And so when you go in there, and we've had stories of other people we've spoken to who have visited this cave and have had very like vivid Morrigan experiences afterwards. So she is present. She is alive and well in this cave. And the Morrigan really balances that Bridget energy. They're both considered kind of like, again, like this maternal mother, whether it's life into this world or life into the world of other, and having this guide to transition your soul, right? To transition your spirit. And like I said, using that word darkness, it does a disservice.
It does.
It does. It does a disservice. It's more that wild, chaotic energy. You know, that uncontrollable. The Morrigan's very sexual. She's very powerful. She protects Ireland.
And we need to call in more of that.
Yeah,
more sexual empowerment and boundaries and consent.
All of the things. So she's a gorgeous balance to that energy of Bridget, both sides of the mother.
Yeah. Yes. So that very powerful days. And then the last full day in Ireland, we are going to go see Newgrange. And we are going to go see the Hill of Tara.
Yes.
The Kings of Ireland. So we are doing just an incredible amount of folklore, which really allows us to, again, this is all lens shifting, allows us to like understand our history and our roots and really what shaped us and forged us. And you know, we get to meet Lou, so I'm excited about that. Which, if you know me,
I think in
do you want to talk more about that?
Well, no, I think it is. And you know, I know I'm late to the party, but like why we picked where we were going.
Yes,
right? Like,
it is why we picked where we're going.
You know, there's such a heavy in America where we are in the Northeast. Well, Irish descendants are all over the world, but you know, there's such a heavy Irish influence where we are in the Northeast of America. And even modern day magical practices, whether you practice Wicca, a lot of things come from that Wiccan lens.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether, where that tradition comes from. And the Celts are so heavily influenced. We learn a lot about Greek and Roman gods growing up, well, at least I did. But the Celtic gods really are like this whole other pantheon that's very not a part of that Greco-Roman kind of like ideal.
Yes.
And it's just like this whole new different breath of like fresh air when it comes to ancient pantheons that I do like. That's why people are so drawn to Celtic pantheons. There's so much equality and beauty and beautiful male and female, deities that you can work with. For the women, but also the men too, when it comes to Celtic pantheons, as opposed to some of the male gods that you might come across in Greek pantheons.
Yeah.
It's just a really gorgeous opportunity to connect into what it really means to work with the magic of the land. We say that all the time on our retreats. And being in these gorgeous spiritual places in Ireland and England, you read about it, but I know from experience that when I have stood in places that I have read about in books of being magical, there's a reason somebody wrote down that this place is magical.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
You can feel it when your feet are on the ground.
Yeah, it's hard to explain why you would want to go see Glastonbury tour until you get there and it's Avalon. It's this fairies. It's fairy lore. All of your fairy lore is there. Like there's just
and there's a reason
so much
you can
magic
feel it.
there. And there's even places in Glastonbury which I won't put out here that I just was furious about. And those are things we'll bring up on the retreat, but like ways that I think the land has been distorted
and manipulated
and abused. And
well, that's what happens with power.
Yeah.
The power, like that energy, whatever words you want to use for it, is out there and it's available. And it's up to you to kind of reach out and meet it, be worthy, meet it, like stand tall and know like that you are deserving to work with and interact with this energy and power. And people that are more than happy to manipulate and use and abuse that power are going to or use it as well. So, and that's like what you feel when you go there, like, oh, it's not, it's not people just like, oh, we're here, let's all hug. Like we all love each other. They know that this is like a power hotspot. They know that this is where you need to be doing like magic. This is where it's literally seeping out of the ground.
And that's why it's so important for people with good intentions to travel. It's so important for people who, and we're doing our abundance activation tonight, so we're really talking about like the gift of creation being for all of us. It's not a gift for 5 of us, it's a gift for all of us. So it's important to go and heal those old traumas and those old wounds in every way. So it's important for good people to be abundant.
Yes.
It's important for good people to travel and experience the world and allow themselves to shine and allow themselves their authentic, unique signature to step out into the world rather than be part of, like, not to get conspirituality about it, but part of slave culture. Working, sleeping, caretaking. Working, sleeping, caretaking. Retreats are that break from that monotony, that the mundane. And it allows us to stop and think, stop and take a breath. And then we can go back to our lives and find the magic in the mundane, find the magic in who we are.
Carry it with you, to really have like that fully immersive experience, And that's not something that we oftentimes, I know that I have given myself in the past. So it is so important, I'm squeezing in, right? My spiritual, I'm squeezing in my witchcraft practice. I'm like, and then when you really take a step and you're like, I'm dedicating this time to myself and my craft and my practice, and I'm going to immerse myself in this without the distraction and noise. So now I can like really clearly pick